Maybe it's more than the moon. Maybe it's more than the birds.
While on a studio tour, she became famous overnight when she was only 19 years old. The year she passed away was 32. The downfall and ascent of Pamela Tiffin is the biggest secret in Hollywood. The true reason she turned down Warren Beatty, a tale of treachery and stolen photographs. There was just one Playboy incident that prevented her from surpassing Ann-Margret in size. Now, 60 years on, someone wanted one of Hollywood's brightest stars gone, and now the truth is coming out about why she vanished. The Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, native Pamela Tiffin came into this world on October 13, 1942. Stanley Wanso, her father, was a Polish-American architect. Grace Irene Tiffin Wanso and her family were originally from the United Kingdom. It was this rare combination that bestowed Pamela's stunning beauty, which would go on to make her famous. Before her family relocated to Chicago while she was a little girl, her life in Oklahoma was ordinary. It would be a game changer. A bright and inquisitive student, Pamela grew up in Chicago. She was always eager to learn and was a member of several clubs, including Latin and debate, but her beauty was what made her stand out. She began her modeling career at the tender age of 13, driven both by a desire to have fun and by a need to save up for college. Little did she know that this humble beginning would pave the way for greater things. Pamela started to get serious about her modeling career when she was a teenager living in Oaklawn. Pictorialists noticed a unique quality in her. Her features, which were both delicate and powerful, looked stunning on film. Even though she was only a freshman in high school, she had already established herself as a star. Then, she accomplished something that most models only dream of when they're 18 years old. Her cover story was featured in Vogue magazine. Everything changed because of that Vogue cover. The image wasn't merely aesthetic. That she should be considered one of New York City's top fashion models was proven by this. An influx of bids ensued. Towards the end of the 1950s and beginning of the 1960s, her weekly earnings reached $1,500. As far as young models were concerned, that was a stroke of luck. She was much more than that. Major advertising campaigns also used her as their face. Bert Stearns' lingerie ad for the NYT magazine is among the most well-known. One of the most famous models of her time, she was equally at home in the worlds of high fashion and advertising. After all their hard work, Pamela and her mom uprooted to the Big Apple. In an effort to juggle her expanding modeling career with her studies, she enrolled at Hunter College. But her time was being increasingly taken up by modeling. A decision would be required of her soon. The opportunities were too great to pass up, so she dropped out of college to pursue modeling professionally. She never completed her education, but her job took her all over the globe, teaching her things she never knew she needed to know. After that, in 1960, things changed once more. Pamela went to see some friends while on a Thanksgiving trip to Los Angeles with her mom. For kicks, they went on a tour of Paramount Pictures' lot. A pivotal moment in my life occurred during that innocuous visit. Hal B. Wallace, the legendary producer, noticed her. He was immediately drawn to her. Being convinced of her star-making abilities, he asked her to participate in a screen test. When Pamela first stepped in front of the camera, her life changed. She had no intention of becoming an actress. Wallace found it remarkable. For the 1961 film adaptation of a Tennessee Williams play, Summer and Smoke, he cast her. The original budget was $4 million, or around $42 million in today's money, so it was clearly an expensive production. Geraldine Page and Lawrence Harvey were the stars of the film, which was directed by Peter Glenville. Tiffin contrasted the film's reserved heroine Alma Weinmiller with the energetic young woman Nellie Ewell. The part was meant for Dolores Hart, but producer Hal B. Wallace saw something exceptional in Tiffin during her screen test and cast her. She managed to hold her own despite being a newcomer in a room full of seasoned actors. Geraldine Page was honored with a Golden Globe for her performance, and Tiffin's work was also acknowledged. In 1962, she was nominated for a Golden Globe for Most Promising Female Newcomer, joining a group of budding actresses that also included Ann-Margret and Jane Fonda. She had an easy charm and a boundless amount of energy that the critics loved. Hollywood had discovered an actress whose attractiveness and talent were complementary. Sequel arrived in no time. She starred in Billy Wilder's 1961 film 1, 2, 3. James Cagney stars in this action-packed Cold War satire. She portrayed Scarlett Hazeltine, a teen from the South who secretly marries a communist in East Berlin, leading to mayhem. Adding an unexpected real-world backdrop to its political humor, the movie was shot on location just before the Berlin Wall was built. Tiffin's performance was exceptional due to her sharp comedic timing and the chemistry she had with Cagney. The Discovery was Wilder's greatest success since Audrey Hepburn, and she was known for finding stars like Marilyn Monroe and Audrey Hepburn. That was quite an endorsement from a filmmaker who had collaborated with legendary Hollywood actresses. Once again, the industry paid attention. She became one of the rare Hollywood stars to receive 2 Golden Globe nominations in her debut year in 1962, when she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. 20th Century Fox signed her after her early success. State Fair, 1962, a musical adaptation of the 1945 film, was one of her initial works under the contract. At the Texas State Fair, she portrayed Margie Frey, a young lady who goes through love and loss. Starring then up-and-coming performers Bobby Darin and Ann-Margret, the picture featured score by Rodgers and Hammerstein. Problems arose during production. Unfortunately, the film was never finished due to the untimely deaths of producer Buddy Adler and lyricist Oscar Hammerstein II. Things got tough due to setbacks and delays. And when State Fair did arrive in theaters, it had a tough time making money. With a budget of $4.5 million, it only managed to earn $3.5 million. Even though reviews were all over the place, Tiffin's turn stood out. She demonstrated that musicals were no match for her comedic and dramatic chops. By the mid-1960s, she had already established herself as a highly esteemed young actress in Hollywood. Many thought she looked like Audrey Hepburn because of her charisma and good looks. However, an issue arose along with that admiration. Similar roles began to be cast for her. Cartoonish, humorous people with little substance. Her comic timing was well utilized in films such as 1964's For Those Who Think Young and 1964's The Pleasure Seekers. The opportunity to delve into more nuanced characters, however, was denied to her. Whatever it was, Tiffin desired more. She expressed her dissatisfaction with being stereotyped in interviews. She was already proving that she could pull off dramatic parts. However, Hollywood would only give her one type of audiences adored her anyhow. Even in the most comedic parts, she managed to captivate an audience with her natural charisma. The mid-1960s were the pinnacle of Pamela Tiffin's career. Her roles in those films encapsulated the spirit of the time and made her a fan favorite among younger viewers. Both The Lively Set and For Those Who Think Young featured her alongside James Darin in 1964. Full of romance, fast cars, and music, these films were created with teenagers in mind. For the younger generation, she portrayed Sandy Palmer, a college student who becomes the object of desire for a wealthy playboy. The film took advantage of current cultural trends. For example, it was titled after the slogan of Pepsi Cola. It made $4 million despite having a small budget. With her charisma, Pamela stood out among the cast, which also featured Ellen Burstyn and Nancy Sinatra. In that very year, she stole the show as Edie Manning, the energetic sister of a student engineer developing a turbine-powered racing vehicle. The Ghia turbine car, built by Chrysler, was one of the real-life automotive technologies featured in the film, which also featured appearances by racing great Mickey Thompson. The film's romantic undertones came from Pamela, even though she despised the promotional stunts associated with it, particularly the request that she pose in a swimsuit. Her reputation as a leading lady in films aimed at young audiences was further cemented by these two features. Come Fly With Me, which she had performed a year before in 1963, was her comedic showcase. The film chronicled the romantic and adventure-seeking journeys of 3 flight attendants. A young flight attendant named Carol Brewster falls in love with an Austrian baron on a flight, and Pamela played the role. Paris, Vienna, and New York City were among the glitzy locales used to film the film, which elevated the film's already lighthearted plot. Filming lasted for 12 weeks. Meticulously plotted out to recreate the 1960s air travel aesthetic. Although the film failed to gross well, critics lauded Pamela for her comic timing, and the role cemented her reputation as a talented comedic actress. She began to play a wider range of roles in the mid-1960s. Her role in the 1965 satirical western The Hallelujah Trail was that of Louise Gearhart, the daughter of Burt Lancaster's character, a military officer. Massive action sequences and slapstick comedy filled the nearly 3-hour film. Pamela brought a new dynamic to the story with her youthful energy, which balanced Lancaster's strong presence. She took on a more sinister character in Paul Newman's 1966 film Harp. The Moving Target, written by Ross MacDonald, was the source material for this suspenseful mystery thriller. Actress Pamela played Lauren Bacall's alluring stepdaughter, Miranda Sampson. Her portrayal deepened the plot and demonstrated that she was capable of handling roles that were more dramatic than romantic comedies. Despite her expanding filmography, critics frequently wrote her off as appearing in fluffy, escape theater fare. The stereotype that she was only good for romantic or comedic parts persisted even after she began working with legendary Hollywood actors like Burt Lancaster and Paul Newman. Tom Lisanti, Pamela's biographer, pointed out that Hollywood was unsure of how to utilize her combination of attractiveness and comic talent. Instead of playing characters with more depth and drama, she was often cast in youthful, glamorous parts. Also, she passed up chances that could have been game changers for her career. There was no shortage of talent, charisma, or beauty in Pamela Tiffin. Tragic scandals and poor career choices prevented her from matching the success of Raquel Welch and Ann-Margret. She deeply regretted declining parts that could have altered the course of events. She was offered the lead female role in Blue Hawaii in 1961 by producer Halbia Wallace. Mel Duvall, Elvis Presley's romantic interest, would have been her role to play. This was a tremendous chance. Blue Hawaii made $4.3 million, proving that Presley's films were surefire moneymakers. Pamela, however, declined the offer. Director Peter Glenville and friends like Dolores Hart had cautioned her that Presley's musicals were too formulaic and wouldn't propel her career forward. As a result, Joan Blackman was cast instead of her. Wallace offered her a second opportunity 2 years down the road. In 1963, he envisioned her starring opposite Elvis in Fun in Acapulco. This time she said no. Ursula Andress used the part as a springboard to stardom in Hollywood. Afterwards, Pamela acknowledged that she felt remorse for both choices. She found Elvis to be a charming and remarkable gentleman after meeting him in person. After allowing others to dictate her decisions, she came to the realization that she had erred. Despite the lack of critical praise, Presley's films provided enormous opportunities for actresses. Her professional trajectory might have been drastically altered had she consented. The fact that Pamela had no issue starring in comedic teen flicks alongside lesser-known actors like James Darren and Pat Boone only added to the strangeness of these choices. She was perfectly comfortable in those parts, but she just didn't feel at home in Presley's films. She was never as famous as Ann-Margret, according to her detractors, because of these decisions. However, 1967 was the year that she blew her best chance. There was talk of casting her as Bonnie Parker, the lead character in Bonnie and Clyde. With 10 nominations for Oscars, the picture became a cultural sensation. The film catapulted Faye Dunaway to stardom and cemented Warren Beatty's position as a major player in Hollywood. There was a good reason why Pamela declined that part, even though she could have had it. She felt uneasy around Warren Beatty because of his reputation as a womanizer. In addition to playing the lead role, he was also the film's producer. She became anxious about possible conflicts on set because of that. The rumors surrounding Beatty's numerous relationships in the industry were rampant during that time. After realizing she didn't belong there, Pamela left. She was hurt by the choice. The film's violent content and daring narrative marked a watershed moment for Hollywood. She could have reshaped her career trajectory if she had accepted the role. Faye Dunaway, who went on to become one of the most famous stars of that time, was instead given the role. Pamela's decision only served to further establish her reputation as a cautious person. She didn't branch out of her comfort zone like the other actresses did. Until a scandal rocked the boat in 1969. In February's issue of Playboy, a photo spread called A Toast to Tiffin was published. The topless photos were shot years ago as an experiment for her own use when she was thinking about playing a role in The Libertine, 1968. She had practiced naked shots to gauge her comfort level before the film's shoot. She ultimately decided she didn't want the part and put her faith in a friend to conceal the images. Her trusted companions sold them to Playboy against her will. The pictures weren't graphic. Despite meticulous placement of fabrics and flowers to prevent complete nakedness, the damage had already been done. Pamela had always presented herself in a positive light. Her admirers were shocked and her reputation took a hit when these photos surfaced out of nowhere. She was advised to sue by lawyers, but she declined. Taking legal action, she thought, would exacerbate the scandal. At the same time, some actresses were making the most of their sex appeal. The roles that made Raquel Welch and Ann-Margret famous were daring but calculated, and the actresses meticulously managed their public personas. Even though her career was faltering in the late 1960s, Pamela never accomplished the same. She had lost steam after declining roles in Bonnie and Clyde and two big Elvis films. Ann-Margret and other actresses proved they could handle heavy subject matter by taking on risky parts like 1971's Carnal Knowledge. After the release of 1 Million Years BC in 1966, Raquel Welch gained immense fame. In contrast, Pamela was always associated with comedies made for a younger demographic. Pamela Tiffin did something daring in 1967. Seeking more than the comedic parts that Hollywood had been doling out to her for so long, she departed for Italy. She had devoted a large portion of her career to playing youthful, innocent roles in comedies with a focus on youth. She desired a new experience now. As an actress, she yearned to test her limits and discover her calling. That was her statement in an interview, demonstrating that this was about more than just films. A life-altering event was at hand. European cinema drew many American actresses at the time. The types of roles that women could play were limited by Hollywood's rigid regulations. However, Italian filmmakers were more daring. Bold storylines and biting humor helped propel the country's film industry to new heights. It was the ideal setting for Pamela to begin anew. She became famous in 1968 with the release of Torture Me But Kill Me With Kisses, although her 1966 Italian debut was The Nearly Perfect Crime. The satirical comedy, directed by Dino Ricci, poked fun at the absurdly dramatic love stories that were common in Italian picture books. Pamela portrayed Marissa Di Giovanni, a lady entangled in a love triangle characterized by implausible murder plots, staged suicide attempts, and other such incidents. Everyone loved the movie. Comedy and absurdity were well received by viewers. Pamela demonstrated that she was equally at home with dramatic and comedic roles. Another satirical film set in a world of political intrigue and espionage, The Archangel, was released in 1969 and starred her opposite Vittorio Gassman. Collaborating with Gassman, a highly esteemed actor in Italy, gave Pamela the opportunity to prove she was more than simply an attractive facade. Gassman himself lauded her ability to swiftly adopt the European style of cinema. She was getting major respect in Italy, even though Hollywood wasn't paying attention anymore. While in Italy, she worked with Franco Nero, a major celebrity there. Their 1971 film, the stylish thriller The Fifth Chord, was directed by Luigi Bazzoni and featured her. Based on the book Black Day for Aries, the film starred Nero as a drunk journalist looking into a string of killings. The story was further complicated by Pamela's performance as his lover Lou Auer. After filming began, she realized the role had artistic merit, but she later confessed that she had accepted it primarily for the money. Vittorio Storaro, the renowned cinematographer, created breathtaking visuals for the film. Observing certain scenes from the set brought back memories of Pamela's early days as a model. She worked with Nero again in 1973 for the spaghetti western Deaf Smith and Johnny Ears, which co-starred Anthony Quinn, 2 years after that. She portrayed the role of Susie Q, a prostitute entangled in a perilous web of political plots. Johnny Ears, a Mexican government scout who is deaf and mute, is Quinn's partner, and Nero played him. There were some intense scenes in the film, and Pamela later expressed her gratitude to Nero for treating her with respect. Her lack of Hollywood star power was a direct result of her preoccupation with European cinema at this point. While her fame had faded in the United States, her career in Italy had been thrilling and full of surprises. By abandoning the safe route, she had taken chances, tested her limits, and grown as an individual. After finding something more fulfilling for a while, she abandoned the Hollywood system. In Pamela Tiffin's romantic life, there were two distinct eras. The journalist Clay Felker, who helped found New York Magazine, was her first husband. On October 6, 1962, at the age of 20, Pamela was married to him. When her Hollywood career was at its height. Even though he was 12 years younger, Felker was already well known in the publishing industry. They appeared to be a great fit initially. Films such as State Fair and One, 2 starred Pamela, while Felker was influencing the direction of magazine journalism. They managed to keep themselves occupied with their jobs for a while. However, they became estranged due to Felker's commitment to his magazine empire and Pamela's continual travel for film shoots. Their marriage was having problems by the middle of the 1960s. Seeking a new beginning in the European film industry, Pamela departed from Hollywood for Italy in 1967. Their relationship became even more strained as a result of that decision. The divorce was finalized in 1969, 2 years after their daughter's birth. Both went on to achieve great success after the breakup. By transforming New York Magazine into an influential publication, Felker proceeded to transform contemporary journalism. Pamela was able to reinvent herself away from the constraints of Hollywood thanks to the opportunities she discovered in Italian cinema. Their marriage had been beautiful, but they divorced because of their ambitions. Marrying Edmundo Danone, daughter of Italian film producer Marcello Danone, in 1974 marked a dramatic turning point in Pamela's life. A more subdued route was her selection this time. Many were taken aback by her decision to retire from acting at the age of 32, which she made shortly after their wedding. She was still wanted by Hollywood, but she had other intentions. In private, Pamela and Edmundo established a life together. They get the best of both worlds by dividing their time between Italy and New York City. Had 2 young ladies, Aurora Hilego and Echo Angelica. Echo went into show business like her mom, while Aurora opted for a more sedate lifestyle. This marriage was more successful than her first. Until her death in 2020, Pamela and Edmundo stayed together for more than 40 years. Pamela maintained a tenuous connection to the film industry even after she retired from acting. She made an appearance in the 2003 documentary Abel Ferrara alongside Echo. Not guilty, though that was an unusual case. She wanted nothing more than to live a life unencumbered by paparazzi. Kill Me, My Love was the silent but effective finale to Pamela Tiffin's acting career. She was co-starred with Farley Granger in the romantic drama, which was directed by Vittorio Sandoni. She would retire in 1974 after this film. It was at this point in her career that she discovered the creative freedom that Hollywood had denied her after nearly a decade of working in European cinema, primarily in Italy. However, she still felt a lack of fulfillment despite having greater agency over her responsibilities. Not long after she wedded Edmundo Danone, she announced her retirement. Was born to La Cajo Falls producer Marcello Danone of Italy. Her decision was influenced by marriage, although it wasn't the sole factor. Pamela was sick of acting, particularly the same old parts that didn't interest her. She felt uninspired even in Italy, a country with greater creative freedom, because Hollywood had typecast her. She quit her career as an actress at the tender age of 32 after it had taken her from Hollywood starlet to art house star in Europe. Even though her last Italian films weren't as financially successful as her Hollywood ones, they still showcased her dominion. As the tone of European cinema shifted in the 1970s, she began to play darker, more serious parts, moving away from the light-hearted comedies and romances that had made her famous. Critics and fans alike were taken aback by her decision to leave the industry, as they felt she had unrealized potential. However, Pamela had no doubt about her decision. A new life was what she desired. With Alan Rice's 1971 film The Last of the Power Seekers, she returned to American television for a short while before her complete retirement. In this political drama, a rich family's battles for control of their company were front and center. The film featured Ralph Bellamy as the main character and Pamela as a supporting one. It was originally broadcast on ABC as part of the Survivors series. Before focusing only on films in Europe, this was one of her final American projects. She might have been drawn to the ensemble cast and dramatic tone because it offered a departure from her previous romantic and comedic roles. Despite the positive reviews, she had already made the decision to leave the acting profession. Her career in Hollywood and television came to a halt after this. She had distanced herself entirely by 1974. She prioritized her family and her creative pursuits away from the spotlight rather than pursue more film opportunities. Echo Angelica and Aurora Pelago Danone were her daughters, whom she and Edmundo brought up. She embraced motherhood wholeheartedly, prioritizing stability over the unpredictable world of show business, and it became her priority. Pamela, in contrast to many of her contemporaries, never sought a comeback. She avoided the limelight and enjoyed a low-key existence between Italy and New York City because she valued her privacy. She turned down numerous opportunities to return, including acting parts and interview gigs. She maintained her distance even when her admirers and film historians sought to honor her. Pleased with her life's path. In her latter years, Pamela Tiffin and her husband Edmundo Danone resided in Manhattan. In 1974, she decided she wanted a quiet life with her family and left Hollywood. Marcello Danone, an Italian producer famous for La Cage aux Folles, was her son-in-law. Amidst the constant separation that comes with fame, their marriage endured for over 40 years. Pamela died of natural causes in a New York City hospital on December 2, 2020, at the age of 78. Pamela had a rich and fulfilling life, surrounded by loved ones, according to her daughter Echo Dannon, who confirmed the news. Her death was covered by major publications such as The Hollywood Reporter and The Wrap, which rekindled interest in her career. In addition to her attractiveness and charisma, Hans recalled that she was able to leave the entertainment industry on her own terms when she thought back on her time in Hollywood. Her spouse and daughters, Echo Angelica and Aurora Hillego Dannon, will carry on her legacy. Echo continued her mother's career in show business as an actress and music supervisor, while Aurora opted for a life away from the spotlight. After leaving Hollywood, Pamela frequently spoke about the importance of being a mother, despite her past as a rising star. Her admirers and co-workers would never forget her. The praise for her grace, charisma, and comedic timing continued long after she had starred in her final film. Franco Nero, who co-starred with her in 1973's Deaf Smith and Johnny Ears, gushed about her, saying that she was gorgeous, talented, and full of sunshine. People who were lucky enough to work with her or see her films will never forget her ability to blend elegance and humor so naturally. She had a natural talent for giving even the most silly parts a theatrical flair. Her performances were consistently warm and nuanced, whether she was portraying a naive tourist in 1964's The Pleasure Seekers or a seductive Southern belle in 1961's Billy Wilder's 1, 2, 3. She had a lasting impact even though she left the business at a young age. The fact that her films are still popular shows that good taste never goes out of style.